will start in about 2 minutes. And we will, I think this is the last tune that you're going to have tonight. Maybe 3 minutes.
All right, we got a good intermission. Everybody here? You ready? We've got a great artist coming up next. His name is Richard Hastings. He started out as a professional classical Spanish guitarist. He studied as a professor and taught for years and years and years to many, many people. And he decided to take it out and make a living out of it. Along with that career, he realized singing was a good thing to do too, because you can't just play guitar all the time. So he started singing. And he's got a very beautiful, rich voice. And tonight he's going to debut 2 new albums that are going to be released this year. One is called Another Life, Fate Cuts Like a Knife, and the other one is The Last Troubadour. Let's welcome to the stage, Richard Hastings.
All right, I gotta get myself all set up here, at my cocktail table here. Guitar. Hey, let's hear it for Charles and putting together this beautiful little band. Eddie for putting the show together. My God, they put a lot of effort into this, and I got to say, it's wonderful to have this fantastic little environment. And I hope you'll support the Aurora Theater. You know, it's fairly new. The acting thing is a big part of it, obviously, and Charles, with his experiences in acting, is giving a lot of students a lot of fantastic input, doing shows and plays and everything else here. So, you know, I might need that. Set it over here, that's fine. I just want to refer to one. Okay. In case I forget who I am.
I want to make sure they got your hands.
We're good. No, you can see me. Okay. So yeah, as Eddie said, I've just been a working musician all my life. I know that's an oxymoron. You know how to get a musician to complain? Give them a job. Trust me. How come they don't feed us, man? Come on, it doesn't pay enough. Okay. No, I've been very blessed. I feel very blessed, very, very fortunate that I've been able to support my obsession my whole life, and I have to say it's an obsession. Following the lighting guys here, following in the footsteps of Eddie and Charles, and you know, kind of tracking our history a little bit. You know, it's wonderful to find an environment like this. In fact, if you guys don't mind, if you could clink some glasses and swear at the cocktail waitress and you know, make a little noise here. I'm used to playing places where I'm basically ignored, but I'm paid equally. It's an inverse relationship, okay? I'm paid well for it, but you know, it's a pleasure to play in an environment like this. I remember, you know, in my early days as a budding hippie, playing in little coffee houses, and you could hear a pin drop in the place, and that was terrible. And but you know what? The experience was magical, and as Eddie and Charles have talked about, it's an amazing gift to do what you love your whole life. So I'll just play something here, and then I'll shut up and play something here, as they say, and then I'll talk some more. Thank you. Well, so that's a Brazilian tune. I thought it'd be an appropriate tune to start my set off. It's called Day in the Life of a Fool. No, it's from Black Orpheus. It was a Luis Bonfa composition, Brazilian composer. It sort of embodies where I come from in regards to being a guitarist. It all started for me 7 years old. My sister's here tonight, Carol. She may remember this. We used to go down to Dana Strand down there and rent a beach house every summer. And lo and behold, at 7 years old, I'm out playing there on the beach and having a ball. And in the duplex we were renting, there was two beautiful college girls, up above us, and they thought little Dickie was real cute. So they took me in and gave me a ukulele and taught me how to play, what was it? 26 miles across the sea, Santa Catalina is waiting for me. I don't remember anymore, but they taught that to me. And there was something going on even at 7 years old with two college girls in bikinis. I don't know what, but I'm still looking for them, okay? And they're probably in the retirement home, but God love them. I wish I knew their names because they inspired me to play music. And there was something kind of down from below that just was coming up at 7 years old, and I never got over it. Okay, so never forget many years later, when I informed my father in the midst of his my expensive college career that I was going to be a musician. He said, "Son, you're going to be out there with, you're going to be out late every night. There's going to be drugs and booze and loose women, and you're going to be out just," and I go, "Yeah." So anyway, actually it hasn't turned out exactly like that. Darn. But anyway, so that's how it all began with me. So I begged my mom to get me a guitar when we headed home. And, she bought me a steel string, and I took some guitar lessons, and time went on, and it was just a fun little side trip for me. I had a blast doing it, and a few years later, the folk era kind of came about. And, my mom had a group with three of our friends named the Mother Minstrels, and they go out and play hootenannies. Anybody remember a hootenanny? Dating myself here. So that was my first experience. We'd go out, and they'd have me out because I played a little bit of folk music, and we'd go out and play hootenannies. So that was how it all started with me. But during that time, it was interesting that I got myself a nylon string guitar, and I don't know if you know the difference, but most of you probably do. It's just the sweet tone. That's the one I'm playing right now, is a nylon string. Many years ago, it used to be catgut. And before like 1940, when they invented nylon, so they could make these strings out of nylon, you best beware if you're a cat and your owner is a guitar player or a lutenist, because it was all catgut. But so I just became fascinated with the sound of that instrument. And my mother, somehow we found a gentleman by the name, I remember his name, Manuel Chavez. He was I'm not sure if he was Mexican or Spanish, but I used to go into his little home, this mystical place, and he would teach me these beautiful pieces of music, and write them out in this gorgeous calligraphy. This is before they even had copy machines. This was back pre-war, Anyway, but my point is that it was just this fascinating experience. And I'm going to play a couple pieces that inspired me in the beginning to take that track and ultimately study classical guitar. But there was something about the tone of this instrument when you hear sounds like I just played, but so sweet. about this non-string instrument. And I know this is a songwriter showcase, and I'm going to get back to that in a little bit. But I'm going to just tell you a little bit about my journey, because it's been a long sidetrack, but as a result, I've been able to make a living all these years. As my stepmother used to say, tinkling on my guitar. Anyway, I'm going to play a couple pieces that Manuel Chavez, I like to dedicate these to good old Manuel. He was a wonderful man, very, very mysterious, and just so beautiful the way he presented the music to me. Here's two pieces by Tarrega. Original beautiful calligraphy of him writing those pieces out for me. It's amazing. He'd write them out for each student. Well, then there's a classic romance piece, which goes back centuries, probably in the very beginnings of the guitar. It's an anonymous piece, I'm sure you'll recognize. It's been recorded many times. He taught me that as well, and I still love to play this piece. So I know you recognize this one. This goes back to the roots of classical guitar here. So all about that time, I'm taking some lessons from Manuel Chavez, and I'm going out to hootenannies with my mother. What an experience. You know, don't worry, I won't sing Kumbaya for you guys tonight. Darn. But that was a beautiful time. It was really a beautiful time in music, and it was really inspiring to me. And, you know, it's been great, you know, since Eddie asked me to do this show and kind of tell my story a little bit. And quite frankly, you know, I could blab on for 2 hours, but I won't. Don't worry. But, you know, it's made me kind of in retrospect, look at my journey. And so during that time, I was fascinated by the nylon string, the classical guitar. I was studying with this gentleman, and then at the same time, as I got a little older, I had a cousin of mine, and you may recognize his name, Tim Harden. Who knows that name? Okay. My cousin Tim, he was quite a bit older, but he was there. He had gone back to New York City to pursue an acting career, and promptly dropped out of NYU or wherever he was going, and ended up playing in the clubs in Greenwich Village, hanging out with the likes of Joan Baez and Bob Dylan and Steve Stills and Joni Mitchell and everything. So I idolized this man. Tim was just, oh my God, he's back there doing it. And you know, I remember coming home one day from school. My mom picked me up, and we were listening to the radio, and we heard this song on the radio. And Mom goes, "Is that Tim?" And I'm going, "Sure sounds like him." And lo and behold, it's Bobby Darin trying to sound just like Tim, singing "If I Were a Carpenter." So that was, you know, so here I was, these two things that were influencing me. I love Tim's music, you know, and I'm going to come back to this a little bit later in the show, because I've come back to it in my life recently, and I'll explain more about that. But he was another wonderful inspiration to me. And but it was almost like a 30-year transgression, both in terms of my fascination with music and exploring music, and, you know, getting 2 degrees in music and studying music and all these things. That was sort of a little side trip, studying jazz, studying classical, playing pop, and then working and trying to make that all work and make a living at it. It was a big job. I'm exhausted thinking about it. Trust me. But at the end of the day, I feel very blessed. And so I'm going to get back more in a little bit to my songwriting, but I'm going to do a few classical pieces that inspired me along the way, because, you know, what I thought was a little sidetrack turned out to be a 20-year undertaking. You know, I hear, I'll never forget hearing this album of a classical guitarist from Great Britain by the name of Julian Bream, and it was Julian Bream plays Villalobos, and Villalobos was a fabulous Brazilian composer and guitarist who studied at the Paris Conservatory, and Andre Segovia commissioned him to write 5 preludes for the guitar and many more things. He was a wonderful composer. This was back in probably the late 30s of the previous century, and I'm going to do one of those, because when I heard that piece of music, I go, I got to do that. And little did I know it would take me 20 years, but here you go. Prelude number 3 by Villalobos. Well, you can see why that inspired me to play classical guitar, huh? Isn't that a beautiful piece of music? Very guitaristic, too. And Yellow Wolf wrote several operas and concertos and various things, but he was at heart a guitarist from the streets of Brazil, who actually was very talented and ended up at the Paris Conservatory and studied legit classical music, and so wonderful composer. So anyway, as my studies went on, I want to give you one little taste. I was thinking today what a wonderful environment this is. Imagine music back in the 1600s. You never heard it unless you were in church, maybe if you played at home, or maybe if there was a parlor concert in a home, or if you were nobility, you had them playing for you. So imagine, as opposed to today's world, where it's being streamed everywhere, music is constant. Imagine what it must have been like to hear music in 1650. It must have been a truly amazing experience. I was playing a few weeks ago in one of my gigs, and somebody came by with their little 1-year-old, and he was kind of facing out, and as he walked by, he saw me playing and listened to me, and instinctively he just started going, you know? So what's amazing, as Eddie was saying earlier, music is such an instinctual thing, and I've kind of lost track of that, you know, and because I'm sitting there, you know, playing background music for people, you know, dining on whatever. But, you know, and being politely ignored. Like I said, I'd feel better if you make a little noise, please. But I'm going to play a piece that was originally written for cello by Bach. And just imagine yourself in 1650 listening to a cello player play this in a parlor concert or something. It must have just been amazing to hear music. And the thing about Bach, he was a very, very beautiful and complex composer. This piece was actually lost, as most of Bach's music was, for almost a century. And until, I believe, Pablo Casals found this piece of music in a bookstore in Barcelona and revived it. There was a whole series of cello studies that were written by Bach. So this has been since transcribed by Andres Segovia, who put classical guitar on the map through the years all of last century, really. He pretty much put it there. So this is, it's from the cello suite, and it's a prelude to the cello suite by Gas Bach. gospel piece, one that I really love. It's a classic. Albéniz, yeah, actually written originally for piano. It's a Cuban composer by Albéniz, by the name of Albéniz. And he, it's the Asturias suite. So let me make sure I'm in Cuban tuning here. And then we're going to segue into where it all went from there. Enjoy this piece. All right, enough of that stuffy classical music. So, I've come full circle, you know, if you really want to get personal here. It's been a wonderful journey and kind of returned in recent years to my songwriting. I was with a beautiful lady for many years, and when I first was dating her, Carol, we would come home to her place, and she would always put this one album on, and it was a compilation of tunes from the 60s, and it was Leonard Cohen and Neil Young and a number of people, and there was always one tune that came on. It was Tim Hardin singing Reason to Believe. And I used to always say, hey, you know, that's my cousin singing there. Yeah, right, yeah, sure. Trying to impress the girl, whatever. I go, yeah, that's my cousin. And so after about the third time of this, because she loved that album, it was always on when I came over. I finally convinced her that, yeah, it was Tim. And, you know, Tim was a product of the 60s and was an unabashed heroin addict. Loved it, never made apologies for it, and lived his life that way, most of it, and tragically passed from that in 1980 at the age of 38. And but he wrote some amazing songs. I'm going to start with If I Were a Carpenter. That song was recorded at the time by more people than anybody in history. And I have recently, I'm now just finishing and soon to be released an album of all Tim's music. I would really like to bring Tim back into the forefront because he's an amazing writer and an amazing performer and a great inspiration to me as a young person. I think you'll recognize this. This was recorded by everybody from well, the big hit was Bobby Darin, you name it, Robert Plant, Bob Seger, Sheryl Crow, who's the man in black? Johnny Cash. I mean, Joan Baez, the list goes on and on, people that recorded this song. So I'm honored to sing this in memory of Tim. I was a carpenter, you were a lady, to marry me anyway, and my baby. If a tinker were my trade, would you still find me carrying the pots of me, following behind me? Save my love for sorrow, save my love for lonely, giving you my tomorrow, love me only. If I were a miller, had a mill wheel grinding, would you miss your colored blouse, so shine? If I worked my hands in wood, would you still love me? Answer me, baby, yes I would, keep you above me. Save my love for sorrow, save my love for lonely, giving you my tomorrow, love me on. If I were a carpenter, you were a lady, would you marry me anyway? Would you have my baby? Would you marry me anyway? Would you have my baby? Would you marry me anyway? Would you have my baby? So raise your hands if you knew that song. Good, all right. Well, it was Carol who inspired me to start this whole process of learning, of doing a Tim Hardin release. And we went back to Greenwich Village to kind of trace his steps, and I was lucky enough to get some of the original artists that played with Tim, including John Sebastian, Love and Spoonful and all that. He played on the album. And so we spent some time in Woodstock with him, and we spent some time up in Greenwich Village, kind of retracing his steps a little bit. The only club that was still around was the Bitter End, and I was lucky enough to play there one night and play Tim's songs. And it was kind of tough because I said, well, how many people know Tim Hardin out here? Like 3 people, you know, over a certain age, shall we say. So it just made me want to really bring back Tim's name even more. He was such an inspiration for me. And if you get a minute, get some time, hunt him down on iTunes, YouTube, or whatever. He was an amazing performer. I used to go watch him with my mom down at the Troubadour when he was in town. He'd take us backstage, and before I know it, some guy's walking around offering my mother some powdered substance in a little spoon backstage. That was a memory. Middle of Hollywood in the 60s, my God. But he was a fabulous performer and very inspirational to me. I'm going to do another one of his songs, and then I'm going to do other things. The other song that was so famous that Tim wrote was Reason to Believe, and the most famous version was Rod Stewart. We actually recorded that 2 times. And Rod was at one of my gigs. Now, I don't go to his gigs, but he was at one of mine. And so I played this version that I just recorded of Reason to Believe. And he sent somebody up and said, hey, Mr. Stewart sends his compliments on Reason to Believe. And I said, well, you tell Mr. Stewart, my cousin wrote that tune. Anyway, he came up, he was a gentleman, he came up, wanted to really know how Tim's family was and everything. He knew he passed away and everything years ago. It's very nice. So we had a very nice conversation, and sadly, killing time to tune here. Sadly, Rod Stewart probably made more money than Tim did. Tim, you know, because of the music industry the way it is and how people are vultures, he died broke in 1980 and wrote songs like these. Just, it's a tragedy, but it's part of life and in that real world. And he was distracted by being an artist, and God forbid he lived nowadays when you have to spend half your time on the internet plugging yourself. So here's Reason to Believe, if I'm now in tune. You'll recognize this one. If I listen long enough to you, find a way to believe it's all true, knowing that you lie with straight face while I cry, still I look to find a reason to believe someone like you makes it hard to live without somebody else. Someone like you makes it easy to get never thinking of myself. If I gave you time to change my mind, find a way to leave the past behind, knowing that you lie with straight face when I cry, still I look to find a reason to believe someone like you makes it hard to live without somebody else. Someone like you makes it easy to get never thinking of myself. If I listen long enough to you, find a way to believe it's all true, knowing that you lie with straight face while I cry, still I look to find a reason to believe. Yes, I look to find a reason to believe. Tim Martin. What a great song. Tim was really known for his concise lyrics and just simplicity. He was a natural musician and just did it. So we're going to segue a little bit. So anyway, my love Carol, she inspired me to do this album of Tim's, and God bless her because she she just researched Jim, and we were doing this whole project together, and it had a very sad ending. Carol passed away a year ago in January, in my arms, and it was obviously a very tough time from cancer. And so I've been regrouping since then, and all these songs that I was writing during that time that she really inspired, one of which we collaborated on a little bit. She loved the concept of it, and I brought it back to Nashville when I was getting ready to record it, and I got with some other songwriters, and they said, you know, you really should make it more personal, because it was kind of a vague chorus, and so I did, and little did I know it would be prophetic. But this is a song that I think will make sense to all of you. And that's the story behind it. It's called Tell Her. If you see waves when you kiss her, she stirs the waters of your heart when she walks in the room. She makes you feel like a river flowing back to its source. Tell her. If every love song you hear is about her, like an epic on a silver screen, no story ends without her, a love scene. You know I speak from the heart, because I let slip away, only to find it's too late to tell her. And when you feel like you're so far from home, like a lonely traveler in a tailor, 'cause your story ends without her, remember, and when the shadows were closing in on you, she was the only ray of light shining through, like an angel of mercy taking you through the darkest night. You love her. You know I speak from the heart, because I let it slip away, only to find it's too late to tell her. We lighten it up here. Oh man, it's a tough one to sing. Well, here's one, guys. If you learn the song, don't sing it to your girlfriend on a romantic evening, okay? So this is a song I wrote, a little tongue-in-cheek, it's called Me, Myself, and I. Well, I don't need your company tonight. Let me know, baby, everything's alright. I won't miss you even if I try. I ain't lonely, baby. I need myself and I. You can relate, huh, guys? We We got game on, we got beer. We ain't worried about where we go from here. We got history that I can't deny. But we ain't lonely, baby. I got me, myself, and I. We don't worry about tomorrow. We don't need deep conversation. Got no time for pain or sorrow. No time for obligation. Me and the boys, we got our own rhythm. We're singing the blues, just don't wanna live them. Singing songs that don't make us cry. 3-part harmony. Me, myself, and I. We don't need no Chardonnay and sunset. We don't need no long walk on the beach. We don't need no dozen roses. I reckon we're complete. You yourself or anybody else feeling lonely, just drop on by the house. We don't need no company tonight. But three's a party, baby. You, yourself, and I. We'll have a real good time. You, yourself, me, myself, and I. All right, like I said, don't sing that one on a romantic evening, folks. Trust me. I tried that one once. Anyway, I know we're kind of getting short on time. We're going to have Eddie and Christina and everybody come up. And what do you feel like? So I got one more tune here. Maybe I'll do. I was thinking about doing some more, but let me decide which one I'll do. No, I'll tell you what. I'll do one that's kind of sums up the evening. About what Eddie was talking about, and Charles, and about life in general, and all the writing I did during that time that Carol was sick, and those were tough times. But you know, things change, and you never know when they're going to change. And I'm sure you all have stories like this. That one phone call, one meeting, one sliding door. You get on the train, changes your whole life. And I'll tell you one quick story. I remember just getting out of music school, and I had been living at my uncle's place for free. I was working for him, making my way that way and getting through music school. And he finally said to me, "Richard, it's time for you to kind of move on now. You're a grown man now. You need to go out and make a living." And I auditioned at some places that I didn't know how to even make a living. But I had all this knowledge as a musician that I didn't know. I was looking for a job at McDonald's, for God's sakes. So I'm sitting there, and I get a call from an old friend of mine who I knew up in Oregon when I was up at U of O there, and he said, and he was back down here in Southern California. He says, "Hey, Richard, listen, man, I got this gig, and my brother, who's a guitarist, can't make it that night. Can you fill in for me?" So I was really insecure. I'm the first to confess. I didn't feel like I was good enough to do that gig. And he says, "It pays $40. I'm in, man. Okay. Well, I did the gig, and this is one of those moments, like, I wonder what would have happened had I never done this. I don't know. I'd be an insurance salesman now. I don't know what, but nothing against insurance salesmen. My father was one. However, we did that gig that night. I was terrified, utterly terrified. Because I took that call, and because I needed $40, at the end of the night, the club owner came up and said, "Hey, you guys are great, man. Can you play here 5 nights a week?" I haven't stopped playing since that night. So, another little post story. I was tragically lost Carol a year ago in January. and reached out to an old friend of mine that I knew. I actually dated 12 years ago, and I had gone off on a cruise gig, and when I got back, she was married to her boss, and so much for that. But I reached out to her. Well, by another one of those sliding doors, tragically, her husband had passed away. We got together, cried all night, right? We've been together ever since. So this one's for my lovely Teresita, who can't be here tonight because she's in Mexico City, but this one is the title of my new album. It's called Another Life. This sums it all up, folks. Maybe should've stayed with my high school sweetheart. Maybe should've raised 4 kids in Monterey. Maybe should've never left the meadows of Montana. Maybe I'd be singing sweet bluegrass today. Oh, ooh, oh, ooh. Maybe should've raised some hell in New York City. Maybe should've stayed on that job down in LA. Maybe should've never left the workday nitty-gritty. The problem is, well, I'd be someone else today. 'Cause that's another song, that's another plan, that's another book, another man, that's another life. Fate cuts like a knife. Fate cuts like a knife. Ain't that the truth? Bobby should have never left that table in Las Vegas. Bobby should have never left that lady in Spain. Pobrecita, me hace falta. But God knows I would have never been the same. Oh, anybody's guess, take a right or take a left. Head down the highway, right at the light, don't straight ahead. It's anybody's guess if I could have changed tomorrow. Problem is, well, I'd be someone else instead. 'Cause that's another song, that's another plan, that's another book, another man, that's another life. Fate cuts like a knife. If you really stop and think about it, if you really want to know, no doubt about it, it's way beyond our control. 'Cause it's another song, it's another play, another book, another man. It's another scene, another dream, another game that ain't the same. It's another fight, another more, somebody else's story. It's another life. Fate cuts like a knife. Oh, you know that's how she rolls. Oh, fate cuts like a knife. You know that's how it goes. That's right. Fate cuts like a knife.
Yeah.
Thanks, folks. All right. Let's get Andy and Dan up here. We'll do one last one and call it a night. That sums it up, huh? All right.
Then we're going to start over with Pipeline. You've heard enough stories tonight. Anyway, thanks for coming again, you guys. We're going to get them up here. We're going to do one last tune together and support the Aurora Theater. It's a fabulous environment. I wish there were more places like this, and it's a pleasure to be playing in a place that People are actually listening. What a concept. It's a forgotten concept. And,
Facebook,
you know.
Facebook Aurora Theater. Like us on Facebook.
Facebook, yeah. No, we're old school. Tell your friends.
So Richard and I, we're going to get progressive a bit, okay? Which means we don't know what we're going to do. We're just going to start doing it and make it happen, right? I guess. Okay. This is the fun part about being a guitarist.
Laying down, play Stairway to Heaven.
Summertime, and the living is easy. Fish are jumping, and the curtain is high. Oh, your daddy's rich, and your mama's good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry.
One of these mornings, I'm gonna rise up just singing.
You're gonna rise up singing.
Gonna spread your wings,
Spread your wings
take to the sky.
till the morning. There's nothing can harm you. With mama and daddy standing by.
Tentindo.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So, we have a lot of beautiful things coming to the theater, and hopefully these people will be back again. But in the back, Kelly will be taking your, if you want, to be on the email list, the private email list, please let her know. And then if you could like the Aurora Theater on Facebook, that'd be great. Just go in there, a lot of stuff is shared there. Thank you so much for tonight, it was so great. Thank you.
Thank you.